Good evening, everyone. Welcome to City Council. I'm going to call the meeting to order. If you would all please stand and join me in the pledge. Right hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Erica, if we can get a roll call.
Councilmember Austin?
Here.
Councilmember Alex?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Edmonds?
Here.
Councilmember Villaseñor?
Here.
Mayor McCall?
Here. Okay, thank you. And if I can get an approval of the agenda,
I
please.
move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, public comments. I do have one speaker card this evening. And I'm going to call up Aaron Kenilali. You can help me with that one when you get here. And you'll have...
Keneally.
Thank you. Very good. You'll have 3 minutes this evening.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Erin Keneally. I'm with other transit specialist at the Ventura County Transportation Commission. And I just came to tell you all, make sure you all knew about our Youth Ride Free program, which began on September 1st and allows all children under the age of 18 to ride free on any public transit, fixed route service, or general public dial-a-ride in Ventura County. Just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I brought flyers if any of you are interested.
Perfect. If you could give those to the clerk, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Erin, thank you for coming. And did you want to talk about also students?
Yes, I mean, it's for anyone under the age of 18. It will be very useful, especially for students, but they do not need to be enrolled in a school. So students who graduate early from high school are still eligible until their 18th birthday. And then the flip side of that is that students who may still be enrolled in high school past their 18th birthday can still ride. They just need to be prepared to show their ID.
Very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to the consent calendar.
I have 2 items I'd like to just have questions about.
Okay, go ahead, Lynn.
And I have one.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lynn.
On the conflict of interest code, the question on page 58, sorry, on page 58, it has a list of everyone that has to follow it, but it doesn't have city council nor the city manager. So does that mean we don't have to?
I will answer that. No, you do have to. I mean, council is kind of a given per FPPC
Right,
because you're
we
an
fill it
elected
out,
official.
right.
And then the city manager and the city attorney also are supposed to be filing. So you all file electronic, and then this is what the other positions for the city, which will file like a paper copy with me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, so those positions that Erica mentioned are required by state law. So the code is what, in addition,
Got it.
the city staff recommends be filers.
And that's on 6D. And in 6E, I just want to say thank you that Sonic, I keep getting questions about Sonic, and I'm pleased that we're moving ahead.
Christina, you had a question?
Yes, I just had a correction. I'm not sure if someone brought it up yet. On item number, yes, this is 6E. At the top of page 64, I think there's just a typo. It mentions Mountain View Apartments, but I believe we're talking about Sonic. So just want to make that correction.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a motion?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, so we're going to move on to item number new business, and this is 7A, and I do need to recuse myself of this because I live in the area, so I'm going to step out of the room and call me when you're done.
She's actually just going to go have a cup of coffee. So Kevin, you want to go ahead and start?
In 1 second. And yes, I do. Good evening, City Council. Tonight is a public hearing, and you're going to be reviewing the North Fillmore Specific Plan Amendment, implementing Measure I, and its accompanying environmental document, which it looks like this. It's an addendum. The original is an EIR for the whole site. And I did not include in the packet the draft nexus study to determine whether the fees, if there's a connection between the development and the fees. And tonight we're asking that you receive public testimony, you receive the presentation, and then continue the meeting to your October 11th until we complete the nexus study. There's an error in the nexus study that we're correcting, and we want to approve the entire thing all at one time. The North Fillmore Specific Plan, if you look at the PowerPoint, I'm going to go over the boundary with you. So on the westerly side of the boundary is Sespe Creek Levee. And the east side, it's kind of looks a little gerrymandering. It's basically the bluff or the grade elevation between east and west of Fillmore. And the north side is the city limits, right at Good Enough Road, and the south side is 5th Street. That's basically the boundary. So for 17 years, we've been saying North Fillmore, North Fillmore, North Fillmore specific plan. That's the area that we're talking about, right? We're not talking about the area that's below it. So a lot of times the homeowners below it says, hey, you're planning something for me. Well, we're not. It's the vacant area and the vacant industrial area. This area that's circled was identified in our general plan in 2003. And it stated, hey, our general plan from the 80s identified that this area was to be industrial. Industrial is not occurring, and just, trucks did not want to drive through the city to get to an industrial area. So it makes sense to convert it to a residential development, and it should be a comprehensive plan. That's called a specific plan. It's pretty much a combination of a general plan and zoning ordinance together, but it also includes financial costs to infrastructure. So you don't have all of that in our general plan, you don't have all of that in our zoning ordinance, but you do in specific plans. We have specific plans downtown Fillmore and in the Heritage Valley Parks specific plan and in the business park. And again, it shows land use and it shows costs. In the general plan, we identified that 894 homes were to be proposed up here. And then we created a specific plan in 2006. And in 2006, we reduced the number to 700 residential units with varying densities, because the general plan stated we should have varying densities there, from 5 units an acre to 20 units per acre. Well, that's what we did. We adopted in 2006 700 residential units to be up there with the environmental document. The environmental document was anticipated development for a total of 894 per the general plan, so it was maximum build out. So the EIR studied the impact at a higher threshold. 2 years after we adopted the specific plan, a citizen group came together for Measure I, and the voters approved Measure I in 2008. And it basically says, hey, 700 units is too much because of traffic. We should reduce it down to 350 residential units and only allow a maximum of 5 units per acre and require a 10-acre park. You authorized city staff to implement Measure I in 2019. So we hired 5 or 6 different consulting firms, and they put together this particular amendment. And we're before you tonight with that. So we're consistent with Measure I, the statements I just described for you, and we are consistent with the general plan. We aren't at a maximum 894 units. We're well below that, but we didn't have to have that ultimate build out. In the amendment, again, you heard me talk about land uses up there. We have 3 different land uses, and it's a land use map. Let's see, it is on page 12 of the draft. You'll see 3 land uses there: residential exclusive, industrial exclusive, and transitional. So residential means it's the vacant lots with nothing built on it. It can be strictly residential at 5 units per acre. That's pretty clear. Industrial exclusive is a new idea that we're trying in this specific plan. And that means that only industry can be there. And it's really intended for existing industry. We learned in the 2006 specific plan is that when we made it all residential, we made those industries non-conforming. Mm-hmm. And whenever we make anything non-conforming, it's incredibly difficult to get a bank from a loan, or get a loan from a bank. And the property degrades. Right? You can't do maintenance and everything like that. So whenever we have non-conforming issues, that's a bad situation. So in this specific plan, we're saying you don't need to convert it to residential. Industry is conforming. We designed around it, and you can continue to exist, and it conforms, and you can get a loan. We address in the plan noise and traffic, and all of that's addressed. So as residentials build, they'll have to build walls and buffers and things like that because of the industry. Then we have a category called transition. So we're transitioning from industrial to residential. They'll have the best of both worlds. They can either do industry or they can do industrial. It's up to them. So if they want to do industrial uses there or residential, they'll have to mitigate for that, right? So we should not be in the situation of non-conforming situations. What do we do with the old document? So this is the old document. We don't throw it away, right? We have to use it. We didn't get rid of it at all. It's a companion document, or actually the amendment is a companion document to this. So when there is a development, we have to start with this document, and we only review what's being amended through the amendment document. So there's a lot of detail in here that we still do, and then we review the amendment. That's how we review it. Makes it difficult for the planners and developers, but it's doable and it's not an issue. In the amendment, we describe the existing housing element and affordability. You know, we're going through a housing element right now. Quite frankly, after speaking with HCD, it'll probably be about a year before it's ultimately certified, and then in the meantime, we have this approved. So we're following the 5th cycle housing element. And in the 5th cycle housing element, it identified this particular area to have 15% affordability. So 15% of the units up here will have to be affordable. It also described that a developer can choose to pay a lieu fee instead of build that affordable unit. The city council adopted the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, and we need, as staff, to come back to you and identify fees of what that will be. We still need to do that. So a developer will have that option. They'll either pay a fee or build the unit. And then we have the nexus study. And the nexus study is showing a connection between the development and the fee. Is it appropriate to have that particular fee? And city staff's our eyes were really big, looking at this huge dessert, we could eat it all, right? And when we started, the fees were high, really high. And we had some test cases of development, and it was far too high. We'd have no development whatsoever. And then with their help and with a consultant, we pared it down to some really basic items that this development will need to pay the 350 units. They'll cause these fees, and the city will not pay for the development. The development will have to pay its own way. So this development will have a fee program similar to a development impact fee or exactly like a development impact fee, plus pay the citywide development impact fee. And again, we noted an error in that Nexus study, and we'll come back to you with that correction. We just got it corrected today, but we didn't have it done in time for you. This went to the Planning Commission. They reviewed it. They recommend approval. I think it went to them in April or May. We did have comments on the environmental document. It was part of your packet. I won't go over all of them. I will say we received 3 letters today. One called YIMBY, Yes in My Backyard, and they're pretty much saying, hey, your density of 350 is too low. You should go back up to what you originally thought of 894. But the voters created Measure I, and we have to respect their decision, and we're going to be doing that, and our plan does that. We received another letter today from the Carpenters Union, and they're saying, hey, whatever you do, just make sure you require union labor. And it took 6 pages to say that, but it pretty much comes to now, and maybe I'm oversimplifying that. Environmental documents really don't cover labor, but that's what their comment said. And we received the exact same comment on the housing element from them. And then the third letter was from a group of citizens who are saying, hey, that's okay, you're doing 350 units. We're satisfied with Measure I. But the state of California approved ADUs, accessory dwelling units. This thing could potentially be 700 units. And when we created Measure I, wasn't our intent. Well, unfortunately, the state does trump our local rules. I don't know if it's practical that 700 units will be built there, but it's a state requirement and it's citywide on everything that we have, and it's for every city in California. We'll put our heads together and provide response for you for the October 11th meeting to those 3 letters. But we just received those in the last 2 to 3 hours. That's the end of my staff report. I just wanted to give an executive summary. And I know you had 335 pages of stuff. I'm sorry to do that to you. Yes, but it comes down to just pretty much what I said. That's the basics. I've worked with every one of the property owners up there. I've called them, I've emailed them. Some of them live out of state. They've been following and tracking this. They knew every time I had a meeting with the city council or planning commission or whatever, and then they would follow up, and they watch our websites. They watch our city council meetings and planning commission meetings on the website. So they're familiar, and many of them are in the audience tonight. Those out of state are not. I'm sure they'll maybe want to make a comment, and others will too. That concludes my presentation. I'll take any question you may have.
Well, I'd like to start with one from me, Kevin, and then it'll be open to everyone. We had the housing mini mansions opening today, and of the people that applied, there were 800 from Fillmore who applied for going, and 70 plus were, of course, because that's the number of units they have. It's a beautiful unit. It would do anyone proud. It would raise the land values around it. Is there a possibility that in this section where it is the variable industry that we could also do low-income housing?
You can do low-income housing anywhere through the project.
Oh, okay.
Anywhere. Any low-income person can propose, but it's going to be based on 5 units per acre.
Oh, it would still have to be that?
Yes.
You couldn't do a mini mansions in the industrial section?
No. They could only have 5 units per acre.
Okay.
By the way, you talked about development. When we were at the Planning Commission level, there was confusion that somebody's coming forward and proposing 350 units right now. That's not the case. We are processing a project as 134 units. We have a ways to go, and that's on Area B, closer to Sespe Creek. But other than that, we're not processing anything else.
Okay.
Sorry, I interjected in your question.
So a follow-up to my question. So 5 units on an acre, could one of those units be multiple apartments?
Well, we'll do the density calculations. So we can't exceed the density.
So they would be counted separate units? I just am, we are so
No.
short of space, and I would really like to be able to provide some low-income
okay.
housing.
Well, if that's the end objective, I would ask that you look at the housing element. We've identified vacant lots, and we created a housing program in there. And I know it's not part of this particular project, but it does address what you're talking about, and it talks about higher density, and we're following a direction now on rezoning a big piece of commercial highway.
Right.
So hopefully that addresses some of the
Okay.
comments. It doesn't in the North Fillmore specific plan, but maybe it will in the housing element.
Okay. Okay, open to questions of the rest of this council?
Kevin, can you give a little more explanation on where Hillside Drive comes out? Does it come out below Hunter? I mean, I couldn't tell by looking at the little maps.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the exhibit so small, but yeah, you're right. So let's start
It
from.
comes out where the Orange Grove is essentially, and is now.
Let's start on Central Avenue.
Okay.
So we have the Orange Grove on Central Avenue, and let's begin. That's the entrance there, right? That's the most southerly property line is Hillside Drive.
Okay.
You would enter there. And it's schematic now, right? So we'd have to have a project before we get into designs and precise locations. But it's going to start right at the most southerly end of that Orange Grove. And it will continue westward until it reaches the bluff. That's about a 35-foot drop. And then it will follow going down the bluff, the whole 20 acres going northward until it gets to future 7th Street. And by that time, it'll be dropping in grade until it gets to 7th Street. It will never get anywhere near Hunter Drive. It's below the homes that are on the south side of Hunter Drive, probably about 35 feet in grade.
And we're talking, and I don't even know how many years we're talking out where that road would be built. I mean, if it ever will be built.
If the Orange Grove on Central Avenue ever develops and the 20 acres in North Fillmore ever develops, that's when Hillside Drive will occur.
Okay.
It'll be developer driven, right? But we're saying in the North Fillmore plan in the amendment that on the 20 acres, that developer will be responsible to build that portion of Hillside Drive.
Okay.
So it'll be a dead end until we get development pressure to build towards Central Avenue.
Okay. And my other question is, just so I'm clear, the ADU that the state's thrown on us, it doesn't go against our what I'm trying to say is it doesn't go against the density that's allowed in here. So we're not going to multiply it. It gets.
Yeah, so I do the density calculation, and then on top of that, you could do the ADU.
But I meant that's not something we should be even assessing in here.
No,
Okay.
no. Environmentally, it was studied because it's in the EIR.
Right.
We know the impacts.
Right.
But you're right. When we do the calculation, and it's not something I can add in here.
Right.
We are implementing Measure I.
Measure I. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. So if it's 5 units per acre, then how does that compare, just visually for me, to the new Bridges development? Is it similar in that regard in terms of close
It will
proximity?
look similar to that.
Okay.
And it will look similar to the rest of Fillmore, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have a developer that you're working with now that's interested in this?
On only only 30 acres.
Yeah.
You know, it's 103 acres.
Yeah.
Right, so only one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. It's a great report, and thank you for making this amendment pretty clear and understandable. I appreciate that a lot. One of my first questions goes back to the fee, right? I know we've talked about this before, and that needs to happen. At what point does that happen? Because we do, like you said, we have a project that's there. There must be a certain point in time where before permits or something, that will have to come before us. And then my follow-up question to that is, could there be council action to go with exclusionary housing 15% only? Or do we have an option basically to not have that in lieu fee, if it were a council action to do?
Could I jump in on that, actually?
Okay.
So I sent Kevin an email, but he's been presenting, so he doesn't remember. But the council's actually talked about it twice and decided that they didn't want to do an in lieu fee, that you wanted the developers to have to build the units. That way we wouldn't be responsible for collecting money and then having to find a spot to build them and build the units, and that the fee might not be enough to compensate for the actual units. So I don't think that part's going to come back to you guys unless the council talks about it again and decides to bring it back.
But we were pretty clear on that.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
But then to answer your question, when do fees get collected? We collect them before building permit issuance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And another question is about the recreational space and the 10 acres that moved from being more, recreational fields to now linear parks. Sort of what was the impetus for that? And is there the potential to maybe not have a field, but perhaps a basketball court or a pickleball court, which I hear pickleball is up and coming, just to see if, for some recreation for the youth, for anyone actually, any age, and that doesn't take up that space of a field. So could you speak to that?
Yes, we can plan for a basketball court, volleyball court, badminton court, pickleball court of that size. We could do that anywhere in the plan, and we can do that. We could have the room for that. But the impetus was Measure I. So when we read Measure I, it says provide 10 acres, and we sat around with the consultants, engineers, and land use planners, and so forth, and we were initially trying to create a 10-acre recreation ball field. And we presented it to city staff. And city staff quickly said, how are you going to purchase that piece of land? And we said, we're going to make the developer dedicate that to us. And they said, well, what's the nexus to do that? And then they would ask, then how are you going to afford to maintain that 10 acres? And we said, well, we're going to make the development do it. We'll have assessment districts. And then we had calculations to collect fees and to maintain a recreation field. And we quickly discovered the city can't afford it. So we knew we still had Measure I, and we still had 10 acres to do. So we looked at a less expensive method, which are 10 acres of trails. So that's why this area is loaded with trails, and it connects to our existing trail system. And we have what's called bioswales, which will be large. That is park-like, and it's not a ball field. You can't throw a baseball in there. You can't kick a ball in there, but it'll be counted towards the 10 acres. It's visual and it's a nice buffer. But yes, we can fit in the smaller basketball courts and still put that in there.
How will the decision be made as to what will go there? Like, what if they want to have a tot little area or roll down a hill area or something? How
well, I would ask that you give you as a council body make it that decision and give me direction and say, hey, provide space, and it could be any one of these things, right? And then the developer can choose, playground equipment, basketball court, whatever the list is, right? And then they choose it at the time of development, and that development has to go before you as a city council body, planning commission, and then to you, and then you approve it. And at that time, you can say, no, I didn't want the playground, I wanted basketball courts.
Okay. Any other question of the council?
One last question, and that's on the housing, the residential portion. And I know that in the original North Fillmore specific plan, and also in our amendment, there's quite a few photos, quite a few examples of the type of housing that we're looking for. And I see it, I see it in bungalows and that sort of thing. It seemed like it was very highly emphasized in both the original and the amendment. In comparison to some early plans we saw for the developer who's working on 130 units, I didn't see that quite meshed. Basically, I'm just asking, will it come back to us to further define that when those units come up?
So there's a term for that planners use. The term is called consistency. Is what the developer proposing consistent with the photographs you just described, and then the narrative that's in there? The staff is supposed to answer that. Is it consistent? Yes or no? And then we tell the developer. And the developer can hear, yeah, it's not consistent. And he instructs us, you move forward with the project, and that'll be a decision by the Planning Commission and the City Council. So I don't know if the developer's finished with their architecture yet. We're still in draft stages. But if it's inconsistent, that's something that you or decision makers here will be able to decide.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Well set. Okay, then I'm opening this to public comment, and I have two people. Nathan Keith. Three minutes, Nathan.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Normally I would say mayor, but she's not here right now. Thank you for having me. My name is Nathan Keith, and I am with Williams Homes. Williams Homes is based out of Santa Clarita. We are a local home builder who has built in the city of Fillmore and worked with city staff before. And we are proud to come back and start another project in Fillmore. We have been the owner of, I guess, what we call Parcel B for over 3 years now. Kevin went over a lot of the history, and so I don't want to re-emphasize it. The one thing I will say is, as a landowner, we have been prohibited from building until this has been voted on and approved, which has been, well, since 2008 at this point, and another builder has sold it and moved on. We are here to stay because we love this valley, and we've built all over Piru, Ventura, and Santa Clarita and here. So we're excited for this. I can't sing the praises high enough of Dave and the leadership he has done to the staff. They've done a great job on this plan, and I'm here to speak in favor of it. I heard some questions. I don't want to get into our development tonight. We are going to bring it back. I would say that we're very consistent, and I have been working closely with Brian and Kevin for the last 3 years to make sure we don't always agree on everything, but a good plan, everybody feels like they won in some areas. And so I am excited to bring it back. I heard Kevin say they got a long way to go. I think he really means sticks in the ground. That does take a while to do infrastructure, pay the fees. We are much closer than that in our plan. And we are working on the conditions, and you will all have an opportunity after we are done with the Planning Commission to speak to those conditions, to add, to talk. I do not want to come back saying, planning recommended this, we disagreed, and we're here to push our project through. We will not be bringing our project before you until we've had, a good time to sit down and work through those. That's how we are at Williams Homes, and we want to be respectful of the city. So again, back to the project at hand, I just want to speak in favor and say that staff, management has done a great job. We're excited to move this forward, and I hope that you will vote yes for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next is Christina Marati. I thought you were out there with your entourage here.
My entourage, sorry. much time do I have?
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, thank you for giving me the time to speak in front of you. My name is Christina Marati. This is my daughter. I have 7. These are 2 of them. I am here tonight to speak about item 7A. You all received the letter from the Fillmore Citizens Group concerning this issue. I just found out about it about 30 minutes before this meeting started. For the record, I'd like to state that the public notice hearing, not all of us on Hunter Drive received this notice. Some neighbors received it 4 times. Myself and Aaron Smith on 524 Hunter Drive, we did not receive it at all. So I just want to kind of point that out, that as for public notice, it needs to go to everyone. I don't know what happened. I don't know why some people got 4, some people got 3. We didn't get any, our neighbor didn't get any. So I just ask that maybe that's checked out in the future so that everyone can be notified of what's going on. So I just wanted to read the letter real quick. Dear Mayor McCall and members of the City Council, this letter is written in the insistence of the members of the Fillmore Citizens Group with concern regarding the process, the substance involved in the North Fillmore Specific Plan Amendment. First, if it is the intention of the city to grant 700 dwelling units through the process of allocating 350 dwelling units, then adopting the ADU process, you would be ignoring the intention of the citizens in adopting the North Fillmore Plan Measure I, adopted in November 12, 2008. 350 dwelling units means 350 dwelling units. If you want 2 units per resident, that's fine, but that would mean 175. I understand that we can't control what Sacramento sends down the chain. I understand they have authority over us. But you have to also remember the will of the people, and the will of the people voted for Measure I for it only to be 175. So I would ask that you consider that. And then I would also question whether the environmental reports and the traffic reports included this potential for ADUs. If we're talking double, have those reports been done to reflect the amount of ADUs that would be included? So I just was wondering that, if anybody has the answer to that. That's really all I have. Oh, and one other thing, sorry. I received notice of this 30 minutes before the meeting started, and I got 9 signatures in that time period before I got to the meeting. I would like to submit this for the record and also say that we can get more signatures to show the will of the people, because we do want what I wasn't present at the time that Measure I was voted on. But the will of the people needs to be respected regardless of what Sacramento does. That's all I'm asking. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And now we can go ahead and have a motion, if you'd like to continue the public hearing for the Nexus, and that's according to Tiffany. Am I accurate with that? Okay, so we're talking about the Nexus now, and the Nexus will be continued. The public hearing for Nexus will be continued until October 11th. But we are to look at whether or not we want to debate whether or not we want to approve the addendum as it is. So, conversation.
Are we approving the addendum and the specific plan? Or are we, I mean, I'm
Yeah, those are before you tonight.
Yeah.
But first, just as a procedural item, if you could continue the public hearing
Right.
with a
Right.
motion and a second and a vote to push the Nexus study to next meeting, that would be great. And then you can debate whether to take action on the addendum and
I make
the
a motion
ordinance.
to continue the Nexus study till the next meeting.
Okay. I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Simone.
I'll second.
Okay, and would you call for the vote, please?
Councilmember Villaseñor,
Yes.
Councilmember Austin,
Yes.
Councilmember Alex,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Edmonds.
Yes.
Mayor McCall has recused herself.
And now, is this the time to discuss?
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. So, council, do you want to discuss the item, the addendum to the North Fillmore specific plan? Thoughts, ideas, concerns, excitement?
I'll make a comment. And that is, I believe that the North Fillmore Specific Plan 2022 amendment is very
comprehensive. And I appreciate the work that was done by the Planning Commission back in April. They took a lot of comments. There was a lot of concerns about the hillside, the road, the noise, the potential, pollution in Sequel. And I think staff did an excellent job of really going into detail and answering each and every one of those accurately and fully. And so I feel confident myself in approving the North Fillmore specific plan and with the 2022 amendment, implementing Measure I.
I have to say that I've been involved with this back a long, long time ago. I was involved when this got Measure I and the whole shebang, and I read this again, and I was like, oh man, my face was just glossed with remembering all the facts and everything back then. And I concur with Christina. This is a very well written the addendum to the specific plan, the addendum to the EIR, and the addendum to the EIR assesses the 350, but the original EIR did assess the 780 or 890. So we're covered under CEQA either way. And I concur. I'd vote yes on this.
Well, we're not voting yet, but
I know,
I understand.
but she already
Right.
showed her cards.
Right. Simone.
I'm happy to.
Well,
I
in
don't
that
have any
case,
questions.
I'm sorry.
I do want to say that between Kevin and Brian, it's just been really thorough. I know we've had meetings, we've talked about this, and as a fairly new council member this year, you've really done a great job in unpacking the last, what has it been, 14 years of this process. So thank you, and I'm very comfortable with what I've looked at here. So,
Well, in that case, I would hear a motion and a second.
All right, Mark, do you want to go ahead?
No, I don't have the. I don't have the.
As a reminder, we will need to read the full name of the
I don't have the thing you need to read.
Okay, wait a second. Get my bearings here.
it is to vote for approving the first reading to introduce. So it's number 4.
So, before you is both the resolution for the addendum and the ordinance.
Yes, okay.
And if you're going to make a motion for both of them, if you could please read the full title of the ordinance, that would be great. Thank you.
So I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 223902, adopting the North Fillmore Specific Plan EIR Addendum, and approve first reading to introduce Ordinance 2022-943, adopting the North Fillmore Specific Plan Amendment of 2022.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Villaseñor,
Yes.
Councilmember Alex,
Yes.
Councilmember Austin,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Edmonds,
Yes.
Mayor McCullough recused. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We will have a 2-minute break. No. Are you going, Brian?
Nope.
Okay. We'll wait for the mayor to come back, and then we will start.
Okay, so reacclimate here. Okay, so we're on 7B. Item 7B is an owner's request for an amendment to the property remediation agreement. 461 Central Avenue. I'll turn that over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This item is an extension, a requested extension to the property remediation agreement for 461 Central Avenue. So what is a property remediation agreement? It's an agreement that allowed the permitting and construction to go in reverse. They did construction use, construction documents, CUP. Normally you go CUP, construction documents, construction use. So we did the reverse through this agreement. It set up a series of temporary use permits under 4 phases to complete all the necessary steps to obtain their CUP and be off and running. They have not missed one event since we've entered into this agreement. They've been able to proceed with business as usual. They've also made substantial progress in completing all of the construction to bring everything up to the current building code. We've done all of the inspections. We're very happy with the progress they've made. Technically, they've completed phases 2 through 4 of that agreement that you entered into. And phase 1 has been kind of lagging because of a chip for the fire alarm system. The chip has been held up through the distribution pipeline worldwide shortage. I think they're making some inroads on a different source for a chip, but nevertheless, that's going to get factored into this time extension because it's due to expire here in a couple of days. And then they would forfeit everything, and we'd be back to stopping any further events. So once the chip comes in, they'll be completely off and running, plus they have to comply with a series of conditions of approval in the CUP. There's only a handful of those still remaining. Like I said, they're making good progress. One is the wall that they've done that's been fully constructed and completed. The neighbor, as I understand, is happy. And so that was quite a feat. Also, Edison is in the works to plan for an undergrounding of one overhead communication line, so that's also in the works. We expect them to be done before this 1-year time extension, but it's a good marker for everything. It's 1 year to complete all the CUP, which is well within reason, and it's typical. So we're on good track here, and staff recommends that City Council approve this amendment to extend the property remediation agreement to April 20th, 2023. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Okay, Lynn?
On page 415, Brian,
Yeah.
it says it's the fire alarm system, but it says it's referred to as AV. I thought AV was audio visual.
It's part of the alarm system.
That is a part of the alarm system?
Up the strobes to the audio.
Oh, okay, and that's the part. So my concern then is, is there sufficient fire safety for the people that come in for the events? That's while we're
Yes.
waiting.
Yes, and part of our reason for requiring what we call the temporary use permit process, when they are scheduling events for the foreseeable future, we'll review those separately as an individual use permit, and all city departments will review it, including the fire department. And the fire department goes out often and double checks, and they look at what's proposed for the event and decides that the fire safety is sufficient. And so far, they haven't missed a single event. But we condition it. We condition these TUPs to say, no pyro, no fireworks, that kind of stuff. And they've done inspections prior to each event. The fire department has come and walked through each time. And they could require a fire department staff be hired to stay on site and watch for fire. That's one option that they've have out there, but I don't think they've drawn on that yet. But
Okay.
so far, the fire chief has signed off on every event.
Okay, I
Short
just want to be
answer.
sure that the people were safe.
Yes.
And I'm sure you want to be sure of that
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah.
okay. That's it.
Any other questions? Okay, and Alex is good with all this? We're good to go?
I don't know, I can't speak
great.
for Alex, but his partner Tim is making a lot of good
Perfect. Wanna
progress.
make sure.
Yes, he's made.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, any recommendations on this item?
I move to approve the amendment to property remediation agreement with 461 Central LLC.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7C, and this is the consideration of adoption of the amendment to employee handbook and to update the personnel rules, and I'm going to turn that over to staff.
Good night, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I would like to request you to consider an amendment to the employee handbook and personnel rules system so that they're compliant with law updates and regulations. The amendment to the employee handbook incorporates previous authorized amendments, so we are updating those. The handbook was last updated in 2007, and then the personnel rules were approved and adopted by City Council on September 27th of 1983. So it was necessary for us to update them to make sure that they are up to what the standards and regulations and laws. And so there's no substantive updates of benefits or anything along those lines. It's just more language that we had to update, and that pretty much concludes my presentation. If you have any specific questions, I'm glad to answer those.
So we can calendar this for another 40 years or so. We'll be okay. Just make sure, you'll be retired by then, so make sure your successor, on board. Any questions for staff?
First of all, it was massive. That was a huge job, and thank you for doing that, because I think we needed to do that. My question is about page 34, and it says that each department head will make up the rules for the department. And I wondered if those rules, what will they be then approved, sent to the city manager?
Can you repeat what section of the handbook you are?
It's section 1010, page 34. It says each department will have written rules for the members of the department and review it with them. And I wanted to be sure that that was run past the city manager.
So most, policies that do not require council approval do go through the
Right.
HR director and then the city manager for approval. So yes, we would
Okay, I wanted
definitely
to
have
just be
city
sure that
manager to approve that.
we didn't have conflicting rules moving around.
No,
here.
and
Okay.
one thing I forgot to mention is I did meet and confer with the union, and the union gave me the green flag to move forward. So we're on the same page with the union as well.
Good, okay. And then on page 40, it says risk manager, and I know that risk manager is a huge job, but it's often ignored, and I wondered who the risk manager is. That's what I thought. Okay, all right, thank you, that's it.
Girl of many hats. Any other comments or recommendations?
I move to adopt resolution number 223899, approving amendment to employee handbook, and resolution 22-3898, approving updated personnel rules.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 7D. This is a request of authorization to extend the auditor's contract for 2 years and an appropriation for the current fiscal year's audit. I'm going to turn that over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this item is to extend the auditor's contract for 2 years. The audit, the one that just passed for the year 2021, was the 3rd year, and the original contract was for 3 years with an option to extend to 2 years. And in the meantime, the auditors they merged with it was White Nelson Deal Evans when it was first originally approved, the auditor's contract. They subsequently merged or were purchased, I'm not sure which occurred, by Clifton, Larson, Allen, and they're a larger group that is a nationwide group. So they've got they're a lot of resources, more resources than the previous firm, which was more sort of regionalized here in this area. But one of the things we're faced with is now we're right into the next audit, and we'd like to exercise the option to continue preparation for the next audit. And there are 2 years that we can exercise the option for. So the recommendation is to do that, to go ahead and keep the same auditors for 2 years. There is just want to point out that the auditors have requested an increase in pricing. We're not addressing that in this recommendation. So the recommendation is to extend the time.
So this takes us out to the end of 2023 or through our fiscal year 2023?
22-23, which is the next audit. Well, it'll be the 21-22 and 22-23, yes.
Okay. So through our next fiscal year.
So now I am really confused. So on page 634, it has that chart that says how much. It says first year, and then it also says an increased amount for the next year.
Now, the chart relates to the budget for this upcoming year, which is the first option year only. And what happened is the audit budget was under budgeted, and we're just trying to get the budget to the level of the first year option,
Okay.
so that we can cover that cost.
Okay, so that's where the request to increase was, it actually cost $14,879 more than you had anticipated, or we had anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, it was anticipated in the contract, in the option of the contract. It was merely a under budget that occurred when the budget was brought to the council for the council's approval. So when we looked at the pricing and compared with our budget, we realized that we had to make that correction.
So that the actual cost will be $52,530 rather than $50,956. Is that accurate?
I think the
It's
5956 is for the
634.
first year, and the second year is
Right.
52,530. So the first year was a change because we underestimated
Estimated it.
what it was going to
Okay.
be. So the new price is 5956, and year two is the 52,530, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Recommendations?
I'll recommend that we appropriate funding in the amount of $14,270 as described in our staff report, and authorize staff to exercise the option in the 2019 audit at the original option pricing of $50,956 for fiscal year 21-22 annual audit, and $52,530 for fiscal year 22-23, and authorize the amendment to the original contract in the form approved by the city attorney.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to item, that would be 7E. And this is the request of authorization to invest cash in the bank and U.S. Treasury notes. I'm going to turn that over to staff.
Yes, and this item is brought about because of the interest rates, how they've moved in the early part of the year. So we're now at slightly above 4% from, I can't remember what the rates, the Treasury rates were, but our only investment had been in LAIF monies, well, LAIF and CD funds in the MBS, with MBS securities. In the first paragraph, in the request paragraph, it gives you the breakdown of the amount of money available for investment. The first part is 35 million in cash that it's in the bank, and that's gone up from, say, about a year ago, from about 25 to 35. So it's just keeping to grow. So if you go 2 years back, it would have been like between 15 and 18, and so that's growing, and it's sitting in the bank. So we need to to start an investment plan, and so this is what we're bringing this this plan forth. The other part is the 26 million is in LAIF. The LAIF rates right now are about I believe right now they're a little bit over 1.5%. So they're pretty low also. So we're proposing to go into U.S. Treasuries, which we can get rates that are about 4% right now. And so we would have the investment policy allows that we do that, to invest in treasuries, and that the treasuries are the safest investments that we can go. We're not trying to get fancy with investing the money. We just want it to be generating interest, sitting out there. It's losing value, especially with the inflation rate that we have now. So at least we'll be kind of keeping up somewhat with the inflation. The level that we can invest, we can, given the authority to invest in the treasuries, it's the policy allows the city manager and the finance director to basically to get together, develop a plan. So that's what we will do, and so that's what we're proposing, that we be given authorization to do that. And the example that is in the staff report, in the discussion, basically it's I factored using 30 millions into treasuries. It would generate about 1.2 million per year. So if you keep that up for 4 years, that'll be about $5 million that we won't get in the bank.
So this is cash that's just that we're just pulling. We pulled out of LAIF and it's just sitting there. We're not pulling it from treasuries.
We're not having to use it for operational expenses. This past year we used $1 million from the general fund reserve. So if you think about it, as far as any spending money from savings, that's essentially what we use. So we haven't had occasions where we need a large chunk of money from the amounts that I've stated here. So it's been either level or growing. And so we'd have to make some kind of determination as to how much do we want to keep in cash versus 25 million.
So let me just ask you this. What's the term that we're proposing?
Well, if it were up to me, I would probably want to go to maximize the interest rate. So it's going to be something that, again, we meet and we arrive at something we feel comfortable. One of the things with the treasuries is that I wouldn't recommend that we go long term. I mean, as it is right now, the longer term rate is, a couple of weeks ago, it was a little bit lower than the short term rate. So the situation is quite different than what it normally is. So we have a situation where we can, if we go like very short term, if we use short term notes, and we'll have the money available, in short periods of time. Mm-hmm. If any situation comes up where the council decided, let's say you wanted to use 10 million to buy a new building or whatever, that we could plan to do that in a short period of time.
So what I would recommend in this, my T-bills aren't getting 4%, so that's really good. Mine are probably 3% at this point, but T-bills are the safest investment you can have. Everybody's watching everything tank, but T-bills are face value, so it's probably net to par when you purchase them, and then it advances. What we should probably do is open different ones at different intervals.
Sure.
So we get one, say 6 months, we get one for a year, we get one for 2 years. The rate's locked in, and then we could then choose to roll that back in, put that back in and let it keep rolling, but it gives us some flexibility as far as cash is concerned.
Sure.
So hopefully you're thinking about that as you move forward, because I'd rather not take 35 million and stick it in one.
yes.
That's very foolish.
In fact, we do that with the CDs. We have
Right.
what's called an investment ladder.
Right. Okay.
And we're rolling the maturities, and then as they mature, we're going further out. So that's what we'll plan to do. I mean, we can come back and, present a plan to the council.
And in your report, it said that your financial advisor recommended this.
Well, they're recommending that we invest the
Right,
money.
absolutely.
They're not
Right, saying what to
giving
do.
us a specific plan.
They also suggested that you report back quarterly, and I think that would be really a good idea, if we could have quarterly quick
yes,
reports on it.
Well,
We'll set up a quarterly reporting.
something to recognize with T-bills too, and this is just, I don't know what you all know about T-bills, but you purchase it for less than the face value. It's called net to par. So you purchase at what you're purchasing at is a lower face value. And then once it matures, you get your full face value. So you buy $4 million, you're going to pay $3 million, and then it has to mature. And if you pull it, you lose money. So you have to let it mature, and then at that point you get the $4 million. So reporting out quarterly on what the balances are isn't going to help you, because you're going to go, what? We've lost money. T-bills aren't the kind of thing where you see net gain over that amount of time. You literally have to let it sit there until it's matured, and then that's
Sure.
when you get your face value. So I'm just letting people know, if you don't know about T-bills, giving a report is just going to freak you out. Like we've lost money, but you haven't, because it rolls and then it matures.
Yeah,
Correct. But with that knowledge and that information and that education, then we can make it an intelligent review of it, not a decision, just to look at what we have.
Sure.
That's my suggestion.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Mayor. And my question is about the investment of these 32 million, and I liked how we spoke about doing it, like you said, in those intervals and still having some cash liquidity in terms of a catastrophic need that we may have. And I think if we look what we could have, it could be an earthquake, right? I think that's the one that we could really think of that we could need the ability of cash funds. With this investment, are we seeing still us retaining or being able to access funds immediately in the wake of a catastrophe?
Sure. I mean, we'll have to develop a layer where we might, we will keep some in cash and some in the short term, the treasury bills, and maybe at higher level at some of the longer term maturities. Right now I don't expect that we would go more than like a 2-year, maybe 3-year, maybe do a ladder of 1, 2, and 3, something like that. And maybe even some shorter, the shorter maturities also, so that we can always have access to the cash on a monthly, we can do it on a monthly basis, basically.
For a certain amount.
And just roll them over every month. So we can, again, we'll have like tier, I expect that we would have a somewhat a tier-like system. It's called an investment ladder, but we can do it also in the vertical aspect of it too.
Yeah, and I'll just say that what I would like is just when that is developed and we have something that we're set in terms of, I would just like to know what those values are. I don't think, I agree with Diane about having to know. It's like knowing my own investments. Every 3 months, lost a bunch of money. But I would just like to know, what our end result is after we do this.
We will develop a report. I realize we haven't done that in the time that I've been here. We've been so busy with the accounting aspect of it, but so that the council is knowledgeable of what investments we've
Correct.
Yeah, the breakdown of
the
that.
money in, and
Years ago we did that. That was a long time ago.
so it's an opportune time because of the sharp rise in the interest rates, the highest in about a 15-year period, and so we should take advantage of it.
Any other questions or recommendations? Anybody want to make a recommendation?
All right.
I move that we authorize the city manager and finance director to invest up to $30 million in U.S. Treasury notes.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Appreciate it. Okay, committee, commission, and board reports.
I have a couple of reports. Ventura County Transportation Commission is writing a grant to get the bus to go to Moore Park, so they feel very confident that's going to happen, and that's exciting. We've been working on that since 2000, if I remember correctly, so it'd be wonderful if it were to happen. They had hoped to also get the same grant and extend a bus line to go to Santa Clarita, which is, to me, would be wonderful, but unfortunately this grant doesn't cover that because it covers 2 counties, and so, but it will cover going to Moore Park, and those are the 2 areas on the needs that always come up from Fillmore, and Fillmore is the group that requests more of Ventura County Transportation Commission every single year, so it's wonderful that finally something looks like it's going to happen. And then the other thing is the Ventura County Air Pollution Control Board is open now for grants for people who have lawn equipment. I don't know if you know that the leaf blower uses more gas than a car, and well, it pollutes the environment more with the particulate matter more than an actual car will. And so they are providing grants for people who want to get leaf mowers, edgers, that kind of stuff, to reduce the particulate matter in our city and help with our global warming. So if you're interested in that, put in a grant. If you have a yard service and you want to recommend that they apply, it'd be great. Ojai has the entire city on electric, and not only do the workers enjoy it more, but they don't have the sickness. So it's kind of fun. That's it.
Anyone else? No? Okay. City council reports, recommendations, and comments.
I do. I'll start. Today, this morning, we had a wonderful grand opening at the Many Mansions facility on Mountain View, affordable housing. It was really wonderful. It was a well-attended event with government officials at all levels, the Many Mansions staff, nonprofits across the county and in our valley. So it was wonderful to see that, including a speaker from who lives at the Mountain View Apartments, and really expressed his gratitude and came from the Spirit of Santa Paula homeless shelter and now lives at Mountain View. So that was wonderful to hear. I did want to point out that a special particular praise and thank you was given for Erika and also Sandra Edwards and Krista Martinez in our Parks and Recreation Department for all of the work that they did to help schedule and facilitate the application process and the use of the Veterans Memorial Building to allow the Many Mansions and the Area Housing Authority staff to interview and do all the applications. They received over 800, and they really had to narrow it down, and they had multiple in-person meetings, and they said that wasn't possible without the work here from city staff. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
I have one more thing.
Okay, Lynn?
I did want to bring up that I was at that wonderful event, and if you were here, I guess before the 90s, Nancy's Cafe was where they have the Gold Coast embroidery right now, and Nancy Carrillo is at our new apartments, and she came up and she is thrilled to be there. And she wasn't the only one that came up who is there that I've worked with and know from Fillmore, and they're just so pleased. So it's nice to know that it's serving our community, which in the long run will help us have more people spending money downtown. So look at that. The other thing I have is that this is Clean Energy Month, and they're asking that everyone make a Clean Air Day pledge to plant a tree, buy produce locally, walk, bike, or carpool, make all online purchases in one order the same week, choose a greener energy rate, change or clean your home filter, and switch to using natural all-purpose cleaners. So those are things you might consider.
Okay, anyone else? All right, city manager's report. Okay, so with that, we're going to recess into closed session. Do we have closed session tonight? Oh,
Do I give these to you?
there is no attachments on here, Tiffany. So we do have one closed session. Oh, there it is. There it is. Got it. Sorry about that. It was not there when I clicked into it. Okay, hold tight. Let me just tell you all about this because it's really important. We have a conference with real property negotiator. The city council will conduct a closed session pursuant to government code section blah, 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 enable to city council to consider negotiations and give directions to its negotiators regarding certain real property at 510 Santa Clara Street. So with that, we're going to recess, come back to you, and adjourn when we're wrapped up. So we'll see you then. These to you? Yeah.